Yeah.
Okay.
Who
He
came
was
from the
there
party.
too. He seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Came from the party. John hired him and Sharon. So it's good.
Yeah, he seemed like a.
John's back in Savannah, by the way.
Okay, so YouTube is live now as well. So I'll just connect the chat. We'll start.
To hospice.
Okay.
It's rough.
Okay.
I was going to do
Okay.
a podcast or a hot tub on Friday, but I'm going to do a seance with a ghost.
We're not doing a
Amy,
seance.
Amy, is your mic off on purpose? Or, okay.
Yes, it was.
Cool,
I was parlaying some information that could not go public. Sorry.
Amy, is your mic off on purpose?
Oh.
Great.
Okay. Yes, it was. I was parlaying some information that could not go public.
Turn it off! I did.
He's trying to share it.
Jesus Christ.
It looked like he legitimately
Very
jumped.
aggressive.
Oh, I felt good.
Did it? I sort of peed my pants a little.
Well,
Made me scared.
some people pay good money
That's
for
what
that.
he likes, yeah.
Are we on?
we are live. We're
Great.
Just,
All right.
connecting the chat, and
Wait, don't do that yet. Hold on.
I think it's too late to. Not
No,
do
I
that.
mean don't get us started yet. Let me.
I think it started.
You want me to pull it back down?
No, I'm saying don't start the ad yet.
Okay.
God, Jesus Christ! I'm trying to share it.
I don't really know what that has to do with me being abused like that verbally, but
Yeah.
okay.
You don't know abuse.
Oh.
And I'm not on. Why is that not connected anymore?
Something you want me to look at or look into?
No, it's just my.
I got something for you to look at.
Ooh, I'd love to take a look at that again. Clear it up.
That was funny.
Oh, when we're done here, I got to tell you this. My sister-in-law is a teacher, and I can't say it on the air, but a kid said something super jackassy to her, and she had just about the greatest comeback I've ever heard of in the history of history. So I'll tell you after the show.
Oh, look! 9 minutes ago, Nancy Mace tweeted, "I'll be voting for Jim Joger for Speaker on the floor."
Yeah, no, it's not resolved. It's the same mess.
All right, well, whatever.
Look, what happened to her? She's been going on Steve Bannon. Now she's like,
Oh no.
she's like gone down. She's lost. She's gone down the queue.
And we are live, by the way.
It's like Elise.
We're live.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
We're live.
That's all right. We don't know.
He knows.
I don't
Okay.
know. Do you know Nancy Mace?
No.
No,
I do.
you don't.
You
As
know,
far as I know
not
it.
biblically.
As far as I know, you do. I do.
All right. And let me know whenever you guys are ready for the commercial.
We are good for the commercial.
Okay. I'll close the door first.
Lordy. Oh yeah, we gotta talk about last week's audio.
I did announce it in the episode, or like on the posted episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, starting the commercial.
Support for Wrong About Everything comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member-owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
And we are back with another episode of Wrong About Everything. I am this week hating everyone and agreeing with nobody. Javier Murillo.
I also hate everyone. I agree with some. Brian McDaniel.
And I'm kind of scared to be in the room with the two of you. Amy Koch.
And we
We
are.
are
Wrong about
everything.
everything.
Yeah.
Oh, Missing Davis.
Yeah. What is Davis?
A little bit of some health issues. Going to be fine. Davis is going to be fine, but just
Davis-
underestimated what she thought would be a more simple procedure.
Yeah, and made a better choice than I made when I came on the air.
Remember
High
that?
on the goofballs.
higher than a giraffe's ass. Yeah.
Right. Davis said, I didn't know the amount of medication they would offer me.
Right. Yeah. No. And they
I'm gonna-
made a
I'm gonna
smart
sit out.
choice. Again,
Yes,
as opposed to
they
me, you can go find the episode.
Remember how
It's a doozy.
Shortly after being appointed to the Met Council, I had shoulder surgery, and I had made an appointment with Peter Bell, who is the chair of the Met Council, who I hadn't met yet, for the day after my surgery. And I was so drugged up that my mommy had to call Peter Bell to say, Brian won't be able to come to lunch today.
Literally, your mom?
My mommy, yeah.
Were you between wives?
I don't think so, no. That was number one.
All
But
right.
Javier, do you know the actual date of your thing, of your drug thing? Because I think that was one of the funniest episodes, and I wanted to pull
We should
clips
try
from
to
it,
find
but
it.
I don't know when it was.
I'll find it.
Okay.
I'll find it. But I don't remember which surgery was it. I don't even remember.
It was
your arm? Your
Yes,
carpal?
wrist.
yes,
Oh,
it
that
was
was
your
the-
wrist.
it was
Yep,
the left.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
wild.
friend of the program and composer of our opening theme, Justin Bell, had a double wrist surgery this week. So we wish him
Carpal
well.
tunnel as well?
I'm a boy. I didn't ask him, but yeah, sounds about right.
That's what it was. It was your wrist.
What does that
It was
mean?
both of
Oh,
them.
I guess. Oh, because you guys don't talk about things.
Well, we talk about lots of things, but not that.
Well, we wish Justin Bell well.
He told me I had double surgery. I'm like, oh man, hope you're feeling better. You know, I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
What else do I need to know?
That seemed
That's-
pretty
yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Welcome to the Minnesota
I
Credit
mentioned it
Union.
on my podcast.
What?
I mentioned it on my podcast. I care about him.
On your podcast.
Our podcast.
Wow. Wow. A lot of
I
Don't
wish
start
we
with
had
me.
some of
Intense
Davis's
energy.
drugs
Yeah,
in here.
you know, Davis is the sobering yin to our raging yang. It's just the pH balance is off without them.
Well, everybody, welcome to the Minnesota Credit Union Network studio, deep in NBC. See what I didn't do there?
MBC.
NBC.
You didn't say
NBC
bowel.
studio. Yes.
Hey, it's triggering to someone, and they're on the Patreon
They're on the
list.
Patreon. Stop it. Stop
I need a
it.
doctor's note.
Yeah. Please, we also always thank Honey Hedge Digital Blue for designing and keeping up our website. Honey Hedge Digital, not Digital Blue. Blue Ox Media
Yeah,
are responsible for the podcast, for the billboards.
our billboards, which we like
Yeah, which
for purely vanity reasons.
Yeah.
and also, so in general, I'd like to say this is a sub message within our sponsored message to our DFL legislators. Put a couple numbers in your phones. So one, Lyft or Uber, either one. Maybe a taxi. And in case you forget to put those, definitely put in the number for Bradshaw and Bryant, 1-800-770-7008. Bradshaw and Bryant, their entire team of attorneys and staff is dedicated to providing the legal advice you just need, combined with the service and personal attention you deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, or criminal defense matter, do not hesitate to contact them. The consultations are free. You can call them at 800-770-7008 or at minnesotapersonalinjury.com. And I was, of course, referring to something we may touch on a little later, but stop driving drunk, people.
Yeah. Well, and that's a
Lyft.
good message for everybody.
Yeah, true.
But if you're in elective office, it is a bad example. And you know, on this show, maybe on other shows, but on this show, we don't celebrate. You know, what one side or the other getting
It's
it.
just
'cause-
it's stupid. It's stupid. It's a
Yeah.
mistake, right? It's all the things, but also like it's a we shouldn't drive drunk. Like,
No.
And it's bad. It's unhealthy. It's dangerous. You can actually hurt people, including yourself.
I'm always surprised in this day and age that that's still happening, because when I was in high school, it was a big, huge push, and we didn't. Right, I will admit, we went to field parties. We drove. We always had a designated driver, always, and it just seems like it's been a while since I've been in high school, and still to this day, people are driving around, and you have so many more options now. You have so many more options to get home safe.
I mean, it's interesting because I think
Even
that-
Buffalo has a cap.
I
One
mean,
cap,
I think, but also like the start of the thing about like when your judgment is impaired, is your judgment is impaired. Because I mean, there've been like when I again, and now that there are fewer financial considerations, meaning that I make more money, right? Like it's an easier thing to say. Like when John and I are out, it's like, well, we're just gonna Uber back and forth. Like we're gonna back and forth or whatever. But you make excuses for yourself, and you think and we don't know all the details in this case, but
no, we don't. But But one thing that I would just like to throw out there is that with all of the money that the state of Minnesota has, there should be some sort of partnership that we can have between, places that sell alcohol and cab companies, Uber, Lyft,
Right.
where to make it easier to get vouchers and reimbursing. There are things that we should be able to do to help, especially in greater Minnesota when there really aren't as many options for Uber and Lyft and
There is
cabs
one.
and whatnot.
There is one cab in Buffalo. That's it. Just one.
But
But that's all. For sometimes
I
there's not.
think-
Maple Lake had nothing.
I think if some legislators want to start looking at that, I think that's a really good idea. I'd be very happy to help.
Interesting. Well, rough week.
Oh
Yeah.
This is just
Rough
horrible.
week. I opened by saying I hate everyone and agree with nobody. I honestly have just been mostly staying off social media. I find times of war generally are really hard, where people what gets it. There's such a dramatic shift between what is acceptable to say, what kind of dissent or what kind of whatever is acceptable, and nuance goes out the freaking door. And in terms of U.S. politics, I think the issue of Israel, there's the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which has existed for many years, and the Middle East generally, and then there's how that plays out in U.S. politics, and they are two very different things. And so we're going to try to do this in order. First, talk about actually what happened, what's going on in Israel and Palestine, and then before we move into talking about kind of how American politicians, U.S. politicians have been dealing with it, what they've been saying, and its impact on those politics, but in general, I think at this point we don't have to summarize for our listeners, but that over the weekend, Hamas from the Gaza Strip mounted a very dramatic and big attack on Israel, essentially an invasion from the Gaza Strip. Which there are many things that are surprising about all of this, and it was brutal and violent and targeted civilians, and we've been, there's lots of items here. One including, just how could this happen? The Mossad is
Mossad is their CIA.
Their CIA is sort of generally considered as one of the highest functioning and best intelligence agencies in the world. Then this was a massive on the scale of 9/11 in terms of intelligence failures there, but and also just want to just speak to the conditions in Gaza and stuff, and then kind of where this goes from here. But just just first table setting on kind of the attack itself. Thoughts, you guys?
Yeah. Well, so obviously it's horrific. There are so many innocents. And I will say on both sides, but there are so many innocents being slaughtered, and the stories are super painful. So my heart goes out to everyone, and I my first thing that I want to do is pray for peace and hope. And Javier, you've been to Israel. I've been to Israel. I always tell people it is one of my favorite countries that I've ever visited. I found, and I visited the West Bank. I visited Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. It's not a large country, so you can see a lot of the country in a time. And what I always felt like, despite all the horror, there was always hope and a very strong will to live in Israel, and that made me feel, I felt very alive in Israel, and to see this is just the videos that are coming out I accidentally clicked on one. It was actually a Republican congressman that I follow on Instagram, and I noticed that later that he had sort of a sort of warning on it that it was graphic, but it was the body of a woman, barely dressed, being in the back of a pickup truck. She was clearly dead. Her body was contorted in a way. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to have nightmares about it. Because it was, at first I didn't know what I was looking at. I had to look at it and go, what is, and then I realized what it was, and I was just horrified. And they were in the back of a truck driving her along. The Hamas was shouting and screaming and celebrating. I think there's so much going on here, and obviously there's been discussion that Iran was involved. I think Iran has always been involved. I think Hamas is hand in hand with Iran's state sponsors terrorists. That's why they've always been at the top of our list. I have a theory too, and I don't know. I haven't heard it a lot, but there's been some comments by Putin. But I think that this is sort of my theory, and I haven't heard it, but. I think that I wonder the involvement of Russia in this, because when I look about like who's could be perceived as a winner in this situation, certainly Ukraine has been our number one funding. Right, Americans have been funding to the tune of $80 billion. Ukrainians, and with Israel is like second or third, and I think that. What is happening in Israel is now going to be a divided distraction. I wonder at the absolute sheer jump in, this is just such a coordinated, sophisticated attack, and even their PR in the aftermath of it has been more sophisticated than we've ever seen. They took the phone of an elderly woman, killed her, and then posted the video of her death on her Facebook page. This is there's always been it just feels to me like they're getting a lot more help, and I worry about not just the ramifications for the Middle East, but what this has to do with entire global stability. And I just haven't heard a lot about that. I worked for the NSA years ago. I don't have any intelligence on this. I just want to say that, but I do know the Russians, and he is incredibly good at this sort of thing. And it would not surprise me at all to find that he is behind some of this. The way that they blasted through the walls, the way they flew over the walls, and the PR and the propaganda that's come out of this is just more sophisticated than we've seen really ever out of Hamas.
Well, and this is something that if you go on TikTok, if you go on Twitter, if you go on whatever, there's a lot of citizen journalism about what is going on, and some of it is just extraordinarily horrific to watch, and it's equally horrific to watch politicians try to capitalize on it, and both sides. Ism is gross. It's certainly at a time like this. I mean, when the second plane hit the Twin Towers, that was not the time to discuss, what was going on with U.S. foreign policy. Sometimes there are things that are just human tragedies, and at this point, this is a human tragedy, one that if half the stories are true, it's one of the worst things that has happened in our lifetimes, and this is. I always kind of sometimes hope that things like this become unifying factors. I don't know if there are unifying factors in the United States of America anymore, but this is something that I think is very upsetting. And I don't know if this is part of people's spanks and thanks, and I apologize if I'm stepping on any of them. But one of the things I want to say is. Been a little impressed at how hard certain DFLers have gone after other people on the left who have tried to support jackassy statements and tried to be really mince their words, and I've enjoyed that, because the only way that the parties get better is by policing their own.
Right. Well, so the Twin Cities Socialist chapter made no mention of Israeli citizens, but made a statement that they were heartbroken over the violence, harassment, and intimidation that the Palestinians have endured from Israel over the years. And we're resolved to proclaim from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free today and until liberation. That was in a statement Monday, so just right after the weekend. And it was rebuked by Ken Martin, the Minnesota DFL party chair. I also saw I saw a tweet from Walter Hudson that he was at an event with Governor Walz, and he wanted to. He was giving support to Governor Walz for being so. Such a leader, and the things that the Governor Walz had to say on this terrible topic. So, maybe there's something there that we're coming to. I hope so. I hope so.
Oh, I mean, I think here's the challenge. I think that so like on 9/11, so I was teaching at Carleton, and I was teaching a class called Colonial Cultures of the Modern World, and it's about how colonialism shaped the modern world as it is. And my first day of class was Monday, September 10th, 2001, and second day was Wednesday, the day after, September 11th. And I brought in that day. I'm like just brought in newspapers. All the headlines said, like I don't know what we do on a day like the day after what happened yesterday, and it was just one student. But in my midterm evaluations, one student complained that like I didn't, I wasn't that I didn't teach that day, although I'd actually in a class about colonial cultures of the modern world is actually, and about how modern imperialism shaped the modern world. It was actually extremely relevant to the question. But I think to what you were saying earlier, Brian, I think we're a country that is not used to that is very it's worse than a historical. We are extremely presentist, and I mean presentist as in today, to this news cycle, and I think that, and we're veering into sort of the political. I guess probably how I set this up was probably an impossible task to try to deal with sort of what happened first and then the political implications, because when it comes to Israel and Palestine, they're always intermixed. But there's just so little space for a nuanced discussion. There's even in the I think we can both say that I as a person on the left and a progressive value human life. Period. End of stop. It's period. Stop. Everything else. I can both say the attacks. The killings, all this are absolutely abhorrent, and also say that in a situation where the Gaza Strip has been a humanitarian disaster for many years, the UN declared that if by 2020 things hadn't changed, that it would be catastrophic, and it is 3 years later than that deadline, and nothing has happened. And just on September, in the late September, worshippers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque were beaten by the Israeli police, who were protecting extremists like settlers who were there. That to say it's unprovoked is a historical. To say, we can both criticize Hamas's tactics, what Hamas has done here. I gotta say, I would love to hear you guys' thought on this, because I struggle with the whole civilians that because I feel like it ends up minimizing. War, right now, there hasn't been a war in memory. I mean, we since World War II, we came up with, or was it World War One, the rules of war, when all these
in
sort
relation
of conventions,
to the mustard gas and whatnot,
conventions and all that stuff. But war is, I think by definition, so when we talk about rules of war, it just feels like an oxymoron, right? And that it would. That this, when you see in Ukraine, how the Russians are attacking cities and they're doing this, and so it feels weird to me to say, but I at the same time acknowledging that obviously no one should be facing any kind of violence, but yes, that this and the public display of it and all of those things, but while also acknowledging, right, that we are right now like what Israel has done in Gaza and what it's promising now to do on a large scale is is to proceed forward in a way that while also denying access to any journalists, right? And so like it is true and not both siderism to say that there are daily abuses against civilians in Gaza and on the West Bank, and we have been okay. The world has been okay with a status quo that was not sustainable. Period. And so now the question moving forward, I think, is going to be like, can this be resolved? I think, when's the last time you heard anyone talk about two-state solution? Like,
right. No, you don't talk about it anymore. I know it's but it doesn't it almost feel, and I know, and this is what we do, right? We do bigger conversations, which we have to, but in the face of this, I mean, it just seems like, first of all, I'm not sure that there is a solution that can be arrived at. I'm not sure.
Right.
And I think that's the problem. I don't know that the world is comfortable with the status quo. I think the world didn't know what to do.
I think everyone's in denial.
Well, can I ask a stupid question that you both of you?
Do you know any other kind?
But is Hamas, which when I think of Hamas, I think of Iranian support. That's kind of like the first thing that pops into my head. Is Hamas to the Palestinians what the IRA is to the Irish? I mean, is that an equivalency, or is it more nuanced than that? Can you separate Hamas from the Palestinian people, or no? And I'm asking that legitimately.
Yeah, no. So I think there are many people, many Palestinians in Gaza and on the West Bank who do not like Hamas. In fact, one of the things behind one of the theories of what is going on is that there are upcoming elections. The last time there was an election that that Palestinians were allowed to have elections, they won a majority on a council, and they were in the Gaza Strip. Hamas has been at times a provider of like food and so while Israel has shut down like electricity and monitors everything, like in the Gaza Strip, Hamas was seen by some folks as just a provider of food of opportunity. I think that because there are upcoming elections coming up, right? That part of what is seen as possible motivations for this is to raise their profile with Palestinians as the people who are actually fighting for them, because the Palestinian Authority under Mahmoud Abbas is moribund. He's very, very old, and there's no successorship and all this. And there's only it's very long since there have been elections, because we haven't had, Israel hasn't allowed them, and the situation hasn't allowed for them. So I think, no, they're not considered that. But I also think would be fooled thinking like the world, the Arab world, and just sort of say for a second here, in the United States right now, like I know Palestinian Americans who are being targeted by the FBI literally right now, because even just the sort of things of like people going nuts because Rashida Tlaib, who is Palestinian, having a Palestinian flag, this gets has gotten so crazy polarized so quickly that like it is impossible for anyone to express anything without people saying like, oh, you're for Hamas, you're for Hezbollah. No, but to be for Palestinian liberation, and to believe in a Palestinian state, which is the official policy of the United States,
right?
Is a two-state solution. That is it has been for a long time.
Well, even the Israelis have been trying to extricate themselves from Gaza for years, right? They don't really want the day-to-day administration, which now what will happen is troops move in.
What do you mean by they've been trying to extricate?
Well, I think that they have been
They created a bad situation for themselves, but
I think they've not wanted to be like sort of the mayors of Gaza. That has not been. They've been trying to like move out of sort of the day to day. But now, will they move in? I don't know. Will it? I think how the fighting turns now. Does it become sort of house to house? Right now, the Israelis have been like just bombing like crazy, literally sending planes over Gaza and bombing. But if they have to move in, what will happen? There are still hostages, we believe, on the ground.
They're planning on an assault. Important to note, there are about 2 million people in the Gaza Strip. The border is sealed on both sides. It's sealed into Israel, and it's sealed on the Egyptian side.
Right, the Rafah.
So when they say people have to leave, there's literally nowhere for them to go.
They cannot leave.
And so and then what you're hearing out of Israel is like this rhetoric. It's very eliminationist rhetoric about the situation in Gaza. And I think like we are going to regret. American politicians are going to regret the unnuanced and blanket statements that have happened in this last week, because what we're going to see, everyone is going to be horrified by, because this situation like shouldn't have been allowed to fester as long as it is. So you have it's a human, like there's no sewage, like there, like it is illness, like the unemployment rate is through the roof, because Israel created a situation there, and they've like I mean I don't. They may not like it. I don't see how they've been trying to extricate themselves from it. But like,
well, and I also think you mentioned Hezbollah before. Like, and then you just said also the other Arab states. Like, what happens? Who gets involved? Does Hezbollah open up another front on the like the Lebanese border? Could Israel be facing a further attacks? And it will gauge a little bit on their response, but also will some people see them as vulnerable and
Gabe's
their
asking
attention
for the
here.
Difference between Hamas and Hezbollah.
Just different, really locations, and Hezbollah is a militia that operates in Lebanon, and I mean I don't know all the like nuances. I'm sure they would have nuances of faith and all those sorts of things, but largely is how I look at it is that Hezbollah is backed by Iran and Lebanon.
Yeah, and I think let's I think we can. Talk a little bit about the kind of the sort of the why of like why they were unprepared, because part of, and like I think there are lessons in what's happening
in Israel.
Okay. That what we're that there are lessons for the United States in here that I think I'm not seeing a lot of people talking about, but they're like this is. Like the Israeli government right now is extreme right wing, and when we say extreme right wing in this case, it's like if as if Lauren Boebert was made head of the armed forces. Like there's a level of like the extremists that are in charge of different form of government, and in a parliamentary system like it's different than in the United States, where like you know the president appoints all the heads they actually divvy up different parts of the government, and so like under a coalition government, one party might be in charge of.
And they did agree today
Treasury.
to temporarily, form an actual functioning government between the Netanyahu and then the oppositions.
Yeah, but part of why that's good, right, is that some of these extremists sort of are in charge of areas of government, and so that where they had absolutely no competence, and so. Like because Israel has made a strategic and ideological decision to expand settlements on the West Bank, that's where the IDF has been. They have been on the West Bank, and so the border fence and all that area was literally understaffed, right? And so
and that's why the kibbutzes in that area were heavily hit. So there's, right. I mean, so kibbutzes are like. Farm communes is a big key. It's really the way that Israel sort of populated the land was by setting up kibbutzes and working together and farming the land. And those were largely unprotected and suffered the hardest hit. Hamas went into those kibbutzes and killed and captured. That's where you hear this horrible stories about babies, and that's coming out of kibbutzes. Ugh.
But I think, I think that the strategic choices and that the Israeli government has made, were like that is why that area was not attended to, and the Israeli.
But none of this is. I don't want to. This is not their fault. This was a brutal attack that's organized, I'm certain, from outside, also for Iran, certainly, and others probably.
What I'm talking about are things that I've been reading Haaretz and other like Israeli, like that. These are things that Israelis are asking
how the
themselves.
failure happened.
How did this happen?
Yes.
How did this happen? Now,
there's
like,
a wall that
and
goes beneath Gaza,
right.
and that was breached in multiple locations.
Right. No, and and so like that is the thing. I wish we had the language to and the ability in this country to understand the nuance that because there has been universal backing of Israel, regardless of what the government has decided to do, including as they've expanded settlements in the West Bank, have kept Gaza under this essentially colonial rule. Well, both areas under colonial rule. And the day-to-day, it's bound to explode. Like it was unsustainable. You can't attack Muslim worshippers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque and think there's only so much. And I think, and so now we have it is a collective global failure. Including on the part of Arab states that this, I mean, I think the one thing and again another possible explanation for the intent behind this was to slow down or blow up. I think most likely blow up the attempts at normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel, because they
were starting to it was moving in that direction. It has been really since the Trump administration, and that will almost certainly have to be done.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. It is a tough tough moment. And I'll say just on the Minnesota chapter of the DSA, the thing about their statement, right? That there's objectionable language in it, but there's also stuff that as a statement of beliefs, that saying it 3 weeks ago is one thing, but saying it out in the aftermath of the attack and not mentioning the murder of civilians was just trolling. They were
absolutely trolling. That is exactly what they were. They wanted that to get the attention it got.
And to be clear, they were trolling in a way that and if any of you all are listening, you've endorsed fantastic women of color candidates in both Minneapolis and St. Paul. And they're the ones who are paying the price for your fucking stupidity, because they're the ones who have to then stand up and explain why you all are so fucking stupid, why the boys running the DSA are this stupid.
And they did it for the same reason that Matt Gaetz does the things he does, for clicks, for attention, to be provocative, not to solve anything, not to actually represent anything, not to actually move any kind of conversation forward, but simply to troll.
And I'm going to give Javier a ton of credit. I'm so glad you said that. That was something that I was thinking I was going to have to say, which wouldn't carry anywhere near enough weight. But, politics is fun. And the groupings and the coalitions that we build can sometimes be fun. And sometimes we label ourselves one thing or another, and that can be fun. But these words have meaning. And I get that Democratic Socialist, taking on that moniker, being endorsed by that organization separates some people from other flavors of Democrat. I get that. I understand it. And until this, it certainly wasn't something that I would think was a good idea. But in Minneapolis or St. Paul politics, it obviously plays very well in certain circumstances. But this shows how serious these words. These words matter, and these associations matter. And while certain candidates get gravitas and support from these organizations, these candidates also give gravitas and support to these organizations. So I'm in no mood to call any one person out. But I think it's also important that people who have been endorsed by the DSA, and maybe this has happened and I haven't seen it, so that's why I'm not saying any names, but people who have been endorsed by the local chapter of the DSA should be the ones who are condemning them the loudest, potentially eschewing support, whatever. That's up to them. I'm not here to give them political advice, but it's not fun or funny to say you're one thing when that one thing is willing to do something that is this horrific and childish and damaging. And I just hope that there's more crap that gets heaped upon these idiot monsters that felt like this was a good time to send out the statements that they did.
I mean, I think that like what I'd say to them is like look, if you're gonna play in the political realm, then understand that your actions always have repercussions. That this is not, because to my mind, my take on this is I would advise I'd advise candidates to not seek DSA endorsement.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that by accepting the endorsement, though, we have to, the candidates that you spoke of have they do own a piece of that.
The DSA
I'm just saying,
Democratic Socialism.
Sorry, they
Democratic
didn't.
Socialists
Not that they
of
made the
America.
statement,
but like, well, sure, just like the MNGOP at this moment is a different entity than the Republican Party of another state or like Democratic Socialists of America. It's a national party that is very grassrootsy, and what it looks like in every state looks very different. What I'm saying in this case right here, right? I mean, there's a Democratic Socialist on the Minneapolis City Council who I consider a friend and a very good council member. But I actually think that my frustration with them in these last few days with all of this is that there are, again, really incredibly talented women of color who they've endorsed and who are now the ones who are having to denounce their statement, blah, blah, blah. It's a distraction from campaigns. It's so it's all, it is something that I think all of them, I think this is I might liken it to like if to your question, Amy, like if a candidate accepts the endorsement of the MPPOA, are they all agreeing that Derek Chauvin is innocent?
Right. Well, I don't know that the MPOPO's statement is completely that, but
no, literally, no.
But but they certainly, but certainly being questioned about that position would be then fair game.
Right. No. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
yeah.
So
and you're saying that
right.
They have to answer for it now, but from a party, but from a party standpoint,
Yeah.
you have done by playing a game and playing sort of fast and loose and thoughtlessly politically. This is what happens.
Yeah. So I think in terms of lessons to take from Israel, the Israeli intelligence had been warning the government for a long time that the disunity that has been put on display because of like the authoritarian edge of the current government and the attempt to strip the courts of their power and all that, and the millions of people who've been standing up for democracy in Israel and saying that like our enemies will see us as weak at this time. Our enemies will see us as weak. I'd wonder if you see a parallel here because like we have like as we are coming in here, there's news that that the speaker vote has been delayed. There's supposed to be a vote. There's supposed to be a vote today. There was a poll within the the Republican caucus in Congress on speaker, and
there was a vote. Yeah,
there was a vote, and there was a simple majority that supported Steve Scalise.
Correct. Right. So there's a secret vote. So let's see. I'm trying to shift. So what I would say is also Hamas has no interest in ever having any bit of Israel exist on the face of the earth, which is a very different and that cannot be ignored.
They have that in common with Bibi Netanyahu.
They want to wipe them out.
They have that in common. Well, I mean, and just say and Netanyahu, and this has been documented, has actually
they're harder on them now. They do this. They want them gone.
They agree with Netanyahu. They want a one-state solution.
Right.
They agree with Netanyahu on that.
I can agree with
the
Netanyahu.
difference. No, it is the how will Israel have a one-state solution? That is his position now, Bibi Netanyahu, and this is not both siders, and we just need to understand the repercussions of our positions, and understand that when Hamas says one state solution, what they mean is run the Jews out, and what Bibi Netanyahu means by one state solution is exactly the same thing in reverse.
All right. So moving on to the speaker question. So there was a behind doors caucus, which is natural.
Yeah,
They are the majority. This is how it happens. So the majority goes behind closed doors, and they can vote however they want. In this case, they had a paper ballot. They had a secret paper ballot where people could vote for speaker. And apparently it was a hotly contested race between, it seems, Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise. We don't know everything, and I will just say this. This happens all the time. Caucus is sort of meant to be a place where members can speak freely, and it is very much frowned upon to have a lot of information leaking out of caucus. If you are a caucus member that goes into these arenas behind closed doors and decides to come out and talk to the press, you will soon find yourself not invited to caucus anymore, because it is where sort of the politicking of one party gets done, and there are natural disagreements that they don't wish to air their dirty laundry, and those that air the dirty laundry are frowned upon, because on either side, by the way, this is how caucus politics work. However, they came out with the nomination of Steve Scalise. The problem is that what does that mean? Does it mean anything?
It's not 217.
It just means that now he has, the majority's assent to go and try to build the coalition.
Which I never doubted he would. I always thought he had enough to win half. The problem is that he needs to win enough on the floor to offset the Democrats. What's his number on the floor?
And he's not going to be able to do it without making the same deals that there's some parts of the deal that are just there because the rules are like the one person ability to revoke to call the question.
And we talked about last week. I really feel like McCarthy was dead man walking as soon as he agreed to all of those things, and he gave up too much control in order to gain the power, and in the end, he really didn't even have the power.
And so the blind ambition of saying, "I want to be speaker, and I'm willing to say or do anything to become speaker," and then you got to live under that. It's
Jim Jordan clearly doesn't have the votes. He's further away from the votes than Steve Scalise does. Yeah. So now what? And so then there's conversation. Will there be a third candidate? Will someone arise that can be sort of a compromise? Because eventually the Republicans have to pick a speaker. I don't see any way, and maybe Javier could say this, I think the Democrats are going to vote for the Democrat, and that's it. Right? I mean, there's no way there's a coalition deal. And they shouldn't. I wouldn't as a Republican. I would never vote for a Democrat speaker. I don't even know what the deal could be cut that would allow you to do that.
Right.
So it's going to have to be hashed out with the Republicans, and it's going to have to be someone that can get a bunch of those Jim Jordan votes.
I mean, the one thing I'll say that there's a you can get to a win number with Republicans who voted against shutting down government plus enough of the Democratic caucus, right? You could get to a win number there. I think you're going to have to see this actually play out, and the embarrassment, because this is why they canceled the vote, is because they didn't want to have another replay of the 16 ballots that McCarthy went to. But to be clear, aid to anywhere, including Israel and Ukraine,
on hold.
We have the government shutting down. That was just a 45-day reprieve. All of these things, the clock is ticking, so they better figure something out fast.
If you're Gates and the people who are kind of that ilk in that Republican caucus, slow walking, this gets you what you want. You don't want a deal. You don't want a budget.
Because you don't have the votes to win.
Yeah.
So all you can do is cut a deal with your votes and get as much as you possibly can. And to be fair, Scalise doesn't have the votes to win.
No.
He does not have the votes to win.
Right.
It's simple as that. He has a majority, but a simple majority, but it is meaningless.
But I think that even if let's just say that Tom Emmer, friend of the program, let's just say that he did have the votes. I just don't think that he could, because if you're Gates, you don't want a deal. And Emmer can't say, well, if you make me speaker, there won't be a deal, because then he's going to lose people on the other side.
No, but do they just forever go without a speaker? Is that where Gates and a few of them are? I mean, I can't believe that.
Push everything to the brink and see, can they get a better deal when the wheels really
They
are
had a
falling off.
really sweet deal with McCarthy.
But if they push it to the brink, that may be the only scenario under which there's a weird that a moderate arises who only becomes speaker with the help of Democrats. I mean,
But
I
a
don't think
moderate
that's
Republican,
a moderate
though?
Republican, yeah. I mean, I don't a more moderate Republican. There are no moderates in your party anymore. Certainly not in D.C.
Yeah, this is a real mess, and I never thought. I didn't think they could. I didn't know how they were going to come out with anyone anyway. There was a growing support for Jim Jordan, and I will remind folks that Jim Jordan then did get behind Kevin McCarthy.
Right.
And it didn't get McCarthy the votes that he needed. So even if Jim Jordan comes forward and says, okay, I've talked with Steve Scalise, I'm going to support him because I lost I don't have the majority of votes here. That isn't necessarily enough to sway all the voters that voted with him. He doesn't necessarily carry those votes. Does that make sense? He doesn't necessarily have them in his pocket where he can go, okay, now my voters are voting for Scalise.
Right.
He doesn't have those.
He doesn't control them. Yeah,
he doesn't really control them.
I mean, that's because that's the problem that they have is that wing of the caucus is so bananas, and they're people who they don't want anything. I think they thrive on the chaos.
I don't even know that they want Jim Jordan. I don't think they actually. I think Matt Gaetz wants Matt Gaetz, and that's it. And he just knows that he gets 3 votes.
Yeah,
and 2 of them are him writing on somebody else's piece of paper.
Yeah.
So
or his underage teenage girlfriends.
Right.
Yeah. That'll be interesting to. But I mean, again, I think that part of I do think that as the stuff in Israel unravels, one of the things that the country will be dealing with is the cost of incompetent people, incompetent ideological people in positions of power, and this playing out at the exact same time and as the speakership race, I think is very, very interesting. I think this is going to go on. We hinted at this at the beginning of the podcast. We'll just say that freshman DFL legislator. How do you pronounce their first name? Is it
Breon?
Breon. I was pronouncing that wrong. Breon Curran was arrested for driving while under the influence. As we said about at the beginning of the podcast, we wish them well and getting better, and also just all of you included. Everyone makes better choices, and I know that they were at twice the legal limit, which I believe means.
Gross misdemeanor, third degree.
Gross misdemeanor, and also that I think that there will be mandatory when you're at that high alcohol content. There's mandatory what do you call it? Rehab.
Rehab. Oh, okay. So it was reported that a car was over the speed limit and driving over lane lines on I-35 southbound in Chisago County. An interesting piece of this is that Representative Curran worked for the Chisago County Sheriff's Office that was the arresting jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just interesting. And a side note, but certainly they conducted a field sobriety test because obviously the driver showed signs of impairment, and Curran couldn't perform sobriety tests and was arrested. Curran's vehicle was pulled out of the ditch. So at the jail, the blood concentration was 0.16, which is a lot. This is the second story. In July, Representative Dan Walgamot was arrested on 4th degree DWI. I will say I think the blood alcohol was 0.09, so not slightly over the limit. And was sentenced to 90 days suspended jail sentence and 2 years of unsupervised probation. But again, I think to Javier's point, the blood alcohol there was much lower, just barely over. And also in February, Matt Grossel, Republican from Clearbrook, was arrested on DW charges and pled guilty again to 4th degree, which I'm sure has to do with the legal limit.
And it's my understanding that Representative Grossel's not seeking re-election.
Oh,
To
okay.
your earlier point about if they don't come up with a policy for the statewide, maybe they could at least come up with a system for themselves, for legislators, for like vouchers or what have you.
No,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. If you're going to do it for everyone.
but these are human failings, and those of us who work in this field know how human and normal some of these elected officials are. So even when it's the other side, using air quotes on a podcast, but it's still sad, and it makes me sad.
Right. We don't ever celebrate, right? First of all, if you've been through it, you've been dragged through it, you super don't celebrate. But also, there has to be amends, right? I always say that as a part of being human and you sign up to be a politician, you sign up to have things in the limelight, right? Things that something like this, that a civilian, let's just say civilian walking around would not be in the news, right? This would happen. Now it would be incredibly disruptive to their lives. They will have to go through rehab. They would have to go through all the things.
It's
expensive. They might run into trouble with family and jobs and all of those things. This is splashed on the newspapers, which makes it, just adds another level of difficulty. But also, then how you handle this, the aftermath, is all the more important, right? And part of that is truly being sorry, truly making amends, truly doing things that you actually also have an opportunity to take this hardship and failings and turn it into something for good. And I would hope that folks would take that as an opportunity.
And to the representatives and staff and lobbyists and voters and everybody, it is great to judge these people until the cop lights turn on in your rearview mirror. And I have not had one, so this isn't me speaking from experience.
Me either.
But what I'm saying is the amount of finger pointing from the left to the right and then the right to the left when these things happen completely looks what's the right word? So disingenuous when there before the grace of God go ye, because if you're doing these things too, you're going to get caught, and then you're going to look like a double jackass because you decided to make a pointing about how horrible some other jackass was.
But, and I don't want to. Yes to all that, and also there are very bad consequences to possibly to human lives, yourselves or to others from doing it. And I've never had a DUI, but have I driven when I shouldn't have? Probably.
Absolutely. Yeah. No.
Probably.
I know.
Yeah. I'm embarrassed to say that. I'm ashamed to say that. And these days, especially there are other options, and just use them. Just be on the safe side.
Is there another level, much like the Bariff, where Representative Curran, as a former deputy, not just Chisago, but a former deputy law enforcement, it does feel like there's more there, right? I think because. And again, they're just human. But boy, the cost of this, right? I've talked to deputies that have seen some horrible things that have happened on Minnesota roads as a result of impaired driving, and stories that I don't want to hear from sheriffs.
They're also someone who's been public about experiencing PTSD, and I hope this is the wake up call. That should be for Representative Curran to get the help that they need, and take full responsibility. Someone asked me for advice and on the communications.
Yeah.
This is not no one direct. This was a general. Someone saying, "What do you think this person should say?" And I said, "Take absolute full responsibility. Come absolutely clean about everything. Do not lie.
Nope.
Always."
No matter what you think, it's amazing. You think you're going to, even the smallest thing, if you think you're going to get away with it, you're not. Yeah. Assume you are not, and come clean completely.
Come clean, speak only the truth, come clean, take responsibility, then make amends. And I think as a former law enforcement officer, I think Representative Curran has a really good ability to do all those things. And so we'll wish them well. Anyone got any plugs? But there are no new members of the Not a Dick Club, which is like, just to be clear, like, not that, kind of understandable. Given, like, I just want to acknowledge the weird things that happen with the, like.
Yes, sorry about
especially I
that.
think we should apologize to the spouses of Wrong About Everything who tried to alert us.
Right.
At least two of the three.
Two wives came forward and said, "Hey,
Your
something
sound
happened."
sucks," and we were like, "Nah, shut up. That's
So
nothing."
we're sorry about last week.
Yeah.
And we've taken great measures. Producer Gabe was working hard on that not happening again, and so we're sorry for that. Sorry to our sponsors. We love the credit unions. We love Bradshaw and Bryant, and we're very sorry about that.
Yeah.
So we take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks.
I didn't do anything.
Oh,
I mean, not Spanks,
Oh,
thanks.
it's-
Plugs.
Well, every Tuesday, Amy and I are on the BS show with Bob Sansevier. I don't know if I announced this last week, but I was on Sunday. I was on At Issue with Tom Hauser, which you can find on ksdp.com if you want to look at it now.
Javier and I were on
Almanac last week.
which we also didn't announce because we hadn't been picked yet. I will be doing. I've done an interview with Esme Murphy, so that'll be going sometime this week on the Israeli kind of the political ramifications of the crisis in Israel. So.
Okay. Spanks, thanks.
I can go. Well, first of all, I want to thank Gabe for this lighting scheme. I think it makes my shirt look awesome. I look great in this light, so thank you, Gabe. But I'm going to have a couple of thanks. My first thank, this week, RFK Jr. Announced that he's going to make an independent run for president. And I'm not here to thank RFK Jr. from doing that, because frankly, the two names that I keep hearing might make an independent run are RFK Jr. and West Virginia. Manchin, which I don't think is going to happen, but I've heard that from people who live in the Beltway. I don't know that either of those people actually pull votes away from Democrats. I think they probably pull votes away from Republicans. But I'm going to use this as a thank to third-party candidates. I think at a time when you can certainly make arguments that the choices being presented for president by the Republicans and the Democrats, which looks like it'll be Biden and Trump again, when they are so distasteful to a majority of actual real voting Americans, I think the only way to right the ship is to have a third-party candidate or two third-party candidates or a bunch of them be able to take enough votes away to prevent somebody from getting the number of electoral votes they need to win. Only then, much like Matt Gaetz and the people in the Republican caucus, only then will you have the power to make deals that actually have some sort of change. So, we don't know who the Republican endorsed candidate's going to be yet. We have a pretty good idea. #soon. But I really think that democracy is better when the people feel as though they are having the choice to vote for somebody they actually believe in, instead of just constantly voting against the other person. And it's been far too long before people had candidates that they really believed in, and both Democrats and Republicans had candidates that we all called Hitler and the devil and all that if we had a time machine, we would kill for those candidates again.
It's interesting that, like, Steve Bannon was like a big booster of RFK Jr. when he thought he was going to run in the primary, and now he's super pissed.
Does he? I don't know if he takes votes. I'm not sure where he takes votes from.
I think he takes those from Republicans, certainly.
Yeah, but he's so the thing, he's so whacked out, and the Kennedys are going to be so strongly with the Democrat, with the like that.
But there's that whole Q conspiracy that JFK Jr. is in league with Trump. So does that get some of those votes?
Yeah, but those are Republican votes.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So anyway,
It's bizarre. But you know what? We got to take the government back, people. The Declaration of Independence.
Am I I was so complicated. So we don't like RFK, but you're thanking him for running third party.
No, I'm thanking third parties in general.
Okay.
In a circumstance like this, I've spent my whole career lamenting them and cursing them and shaking my fist at them as throwaway votes. But they're not throwaway votes when you have two choices that are unacceptable to the majority of Americans, and that's what I think we have right now.
I think maybe the problem is their false equivalence, but that's just me. An old man versus an authoritarian. It's easier to thank RFK than to do the hard thing and go against your party.
Don't talk over my spank.
No,
or my thing.
But I like doing it.
Everyone knows what you think. After 9.5 years. Do you think what you just said was
the rules of war? We literally all break them.
That was a revelation to people. What?
What?
That you think that?
That I think what?
That you think that it's a false equivalency and that Trump is way worse than Biden is.
You think that you know that's true.
It's close.
You know that's true.
I think neither of them should be president.
No,
they're both offensive. They're both offensive to me.
Chicken shit.
What? No. Once you get past a line, okay, someone is more unqualified to be president than the other one. They're both unqualified. They're not up to the job.
Yeah, it's true. Just one of them led an insurrection against democracy, but it's the same. That's the same. Go on.
Okay. Anyway, my other thank is going to be a group of House Republicans. This is at the national level. Group of House Republicans from New York who are introducing a resolution to expel Republican in air quotes Representative George Santos from Congress. Representative Anthony D'Apposito, from a Republican from New York, said, "Today I'll be introducing an expulsion resolution to rid the People's House of fraudster George Santos." Put that on Twitter. He told reporters that he considers Santos a stain on the House and on New York State. It's time that we move on from George Santos. I think that
Kitara.
Huh?
Kitara. That's his drag name.
Okay.
Oh,
George
okay.
Santos.
Anyway, once again, this is a good government all the time podcast, and I think that when you have people that have violated the people's trust, and George Santos has violated, or whatever their real name is, have violated the people's trust, that if the voters are not in a position to be able to remove somebody, I think it's important that the parties clean themselves up. So I want to thank the New York Republicans that are introducing this resolution, and let's get this Jicky Jack out of Congress.
Kitara.
Okay.
Nice.
I'm going to talk so much during your shit today.
Okay.
That would be different. How?
I don't know.
Should I go?
I'm polite. I'm
Yes,
polite. I'm
please.
polite.
Okay. All right. My spank, I guess I'll spank Mike Lindell this week, who's so terrible. His own lawyers have petitioned the courts to please let them stop representing him.
Is that not something that lawyers can just do? They can't just drop a
Let's
calendar?
ask our lawyer.
It's
I will allow this speaking of my
Yes,
spank.
it depends. Kind of sometimes depends where you are in the case. If you like asked to leave the day before trial, they're going to say that puts your client in. There's lots of times where they will say no, you have to stick around. But sometimes if it's early enough in the process, they will allow you to remove yourself from the case.
Apparently he owes them multiple millions of dollars. This is all related back to libel cases that have been lawsuits that have been brought against Mike Lindell in regard to the 2020 election and his false claims about election equipment. And also, so strangely, some payments were made and then payments completely stopped. And when Dominion sued Lindell and MyPillow in February of 2021, that he was they saying that he spread malicious and false claims about the company's machines, throwing the 2020 presidential in favor of Joe Biden. And then Andy Parker, who I actually know, he's a principal at PDK, took on the case to defend Mike Lindell. Apparently, he made some payments, and then they began to, like, the payments started to slow up. They had to fight to get like half the payments, and now they're saying they're owed millions of dollars, and they just want to withdraw from the case. So, so anyway, I guess I just think how terrible do you have to be? And also, I wonder kind of what's happening with the company here too. That Mike Lindell, who supposedly touts himself as like the self-made millionaire,
the pillows aren't getting better.
They're not getting better. They're awful pillows. But that's just a fact.
Yeah.
They're not even good for a cabin or a camper. Okay, so with that, Mike Lindell is spanked, and then my thank is very simple. Hopefully, you guys won't. I just want to say thank you. This was my birthday was on Sunday, and I received so many lovely happy birthdays, and I had a great week. Spent a lot of time with friends and family, and people singing to me, and it's been wonderful. And so, if you are listening and you sent me a Facebook message, or we went out to dinner, or hit the Vikings game, I want to say thank you for making my week so joyous.
We have. Did you guys hear that applause?
Yeah, that was for me thanking.
Okay, all right. No, it's just was that just
Cue applause.
Can I? Oh my God! So this week, Zoom added a new feature that balloons just come up, but I don't know how it happens. It keeps happening when I'm talking about really sad things.
Oh no!
Like balloons. And I have to explain.
Like you're celebrating.
They're celebrating. I was like literally like talking about a horrible family situation you know about, and balloons went off.
It's like remember that lawyer that went to court and he was a cat.
Exactly.
I don't know. I am not a cat.
Your Honor, obviously I am not a cat.
Obviously, I'm not a cat.
I think they're saying you're full of hot air.
Yes. So my spank this week. Actually, I'm gonna do two thanks. One thank is sorry, Gabe, this is different than what. So ignore what's in the run sheet. We got a poll this week that's showing that Ruben Gallego is leading both Carrie Lake and Kristen Sinema in Arizona. I think that's fantastic.
I hate third parties.
He's a Democrat.
No, but Kristen Cinema is independent.
Yeah.
Just go on. I just want to mess with your stuff.
That didn't work.
You don't work.
Anyway, I've been working in Arizona as part of my day job, and been making the case that that Carrie Lake entering the race is actually a helpful thing for our candidate, and I think that is bearing out there. Gallego is solidifying support among Democrats. So to the Democrats listening, throw a few bucks at Ruben Gallego and get rid of Kirsten Sinema, because she should not be in the Senate. My other thank, I was on that trip that I was on to Israel that Amy mentioned, that I went in I think it was 2014, it was some years back. A trip that honestly, like I said before in this class, I would not do that same trip today, because unfortunately the way politics have shifted there was a glimmer of hope. We were meeting with pro-peace groups and groups that in Israel that were working toward a two-state solution, but I think the Israeli public has largely given up on that idea. But we met with the Palestinian woman, Palestinian activist. I was like trying to going through my files, trying to find her name, and I will find it to remind myself and remind folks. But she just said something very powerful to the group that I was with. That you asked her if she was optimistic. She had an optimistic view of the future of Israel and Palestine, and the question of a Palestinian state. And she said, "Pessimism is a privilege that I, as a Palestinian woman, cannot afford." And that just always stuck with me, because given the situation in Israel, she's a Palestinian politician in Israel. She's a citizen of Israel. There are many people within the state of Israel, because not everyone who is Israeli is a Jew. Like there are Israeli Arabs, there are Israeli Christians, but there are indeed people who I think have to live by those words. Like I cannot afford. It's a privilege I cannot afford. So to her and everyone in Israel and Palestine, I send hopes of peace in this really awful time. But with that, I am Democratic strategist and the Puerto Rican Heat, Javier Murillo.
I am GOP strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
And I'm praying for peace, Amy Koch.
And we are
Wrong about everything.
Take us away, Gabe.